Hello everyone, I'm Pierrette and welcome to my kitchen. Today, in honor of my bestie's birthday, I am making Nina her birthday carrot cake. So before we start, I wanted to prep the pans and I wanted to show you how I do that. It's really simple. I take the pan that I'm going to use and I have 3 pans here, so I have 3 layers of waxed paper. You can use parchment paper if you like, but for me, I've just been using wax paper for so long, it's really my preference. I'm going to cut about 1/4 of an inch all the way around, and this will allow for the fact that the line that we drew is on the outside of the pan, and this needs to fit on the inside of the pan. So it'll get us close enough that when we want to flip these out of the pan, they should come right out. And that's what I always do when I'm prepping a cake. I put a little bit of oil in the bottom and I put the paper face down, a little more oil, and then I'm also going to spray the sides. So really quick prep. Coconut oil is also good because obviously it gives it a great flavor, but if you don't care for coconut oil, olive oil, canola oil, vegetable oil always works. Our pans are prepped. To start our carrot cake, we are going to start with 1.5 cups of butter. I prefer unsalted, and then we also have 1.5 cups of brown sugar, but you could use white sugar if you're not a fan of that molasses flavor. Start blending. We're going to blend this until it is significantly lighter in color. I'm going to turn it up to high to speed up the process. I don't know if you can see the difference in this lighting. Now all of it is a light, beautiful beige, which is what we wanted. I'm going to mix in my eggs one at a time. I have 4 eggs. And about a tablespoon of vanilla. In addition to that, I have already added 2 teaspoons of cinnamon, 2 teaspoons of allspice, 1 teaspoon of ginger, 1/2 teaspoon of cloves, and 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. And I'm going to dump that in now as well and mix that in. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. I'm gonna scrape the sides down and make sure we get all the butter, sugar, and spices off the sides. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 teaspoon of baking powder, and 1 teaspoon of baking soda, as well as about 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And I'm just dumping this in little by little. Trying not to make a mess, not really succeeding. This batter looks a little bit dry right now because we haven't added our carrots, and they add quite a bit of moisture. So there's 2.5 cups of carrots. And then I'm gonna add in 1/2 cup of dried cherries. You could use cranberries or you can delete them all together. But I really like the punch of tartness that they give. We also have 1 cup of chopped pecans, my 1 cup of raisins. You're just in time.
Is it filming right now?
Yes.
Oh, so you can put that in as an excerpt.
Just scraping down the sides of the bowl to make sure that we get all of the batter that we can out of this. And I'm gonna do my best to divide it evenly between the 3 cake pans. That's always the hardest part, I think, is getting them even. I have a little bit more batter left, and I kind of held on to it to make sure that I had distributed it evenly. And it looks like you need to add just a little bit more to this first one. That one was a little bit low compared to the other 2. And my husband is off camera making frustrated noises at me because I took all the batter out of the bowl, and now there won't be any for him to lick. Oh, it's good to be married to a grown-up. I'm making a little bit of a divot in the center of each one. Not even probably 1/4 of an inch is about all you need. But that's enough that when it raises, they come out much more level. I preheated the oven to 360. For my oven, it tends to be a little cooler. So when I tell you guys 350, mine is normally set at 360 because it doesn't work properly. And the oven guy was just here last week and he says it's fine, but it's not. But anyway, I've learned to adjust. So I'm gonna take all 3 of these and pop them in the oven. So hold on tight and I'll show you what they look like when they're done. These look beautiful. Oh, and you should smell them. They smell so good. Cooked absolutely perfectly in about 22 minutes. So what I'm gonna do is let them cool, and I'm gonna start my cream cheese frosting. And then by the time that's ready, hopefully these will have cooled and we can take them out of the pans. We won't assemble the cake until they're nice and cool. If you've never made cream cheese frosting, it's one of the easiest things to do. I have 1.5 packages of cream cheese and 2 sticks of butter. And I'm gonna add about 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And I'm gonna mix that up. I wanna mix the butter and cream cheese until they're pretty thoroughly mixed and pretty fluffy looking, because that's what's gonna give our frosting a nice light texture so it doesn't feel heavy and greasy. And it is really important to use butter and not margarine and not Crisco. You can if you'd like, but it does change the texture and the taste significantly. Another tip is don't melt or soften your butter before you do this. Let your cream cheese and your butter come to room temperature. Don't put it in the microwave and try and melt it. It will change the texture and kind of ruin your buttercream. I think we're about ready to start adding powdered sugar or confectioner's sugar. So I'm gonna start with the 1/2 cup. I know that I'll need more, but we're gonna start there. I would start the blender on low because the powdered sugar is gonna make a poof. So we start low and then build up. Another 1/2 cup. So we're at 1.5 cups so far. Wow, that's really good. So I happen to have a cake plate that has a divot in the center. And so I'm going to use that for one of my cakes. But as the cakes have cooled, they've pulled away from the edges, which means I just go around them once with my knife or with a nice hard spatula. And then when I flip them over, they fall right into place and we just pull the wax paper off. So I'm going to start with 1 big glob of frosting. I'm using a different spatula for spreading than I am for scooping because I don't want any crumbs to end up inside of my frosting in there, because then they end up everywhere. This way I can control any crumbs that might start to pull loose and clean off my spatula and make sure that they don't get transferred throughout the cake. And you'd want ideally 1/4 of an inch layer of frosting. Now this one came out a little bit crooked. This is where it comes in handy to use a serrated knife, a long serrated knife, hopefully at least as wide as your cake. So I'm just gonna start here and shave across just a tiny bit. Honestly, it's not very unlevel. So now this looks better. I'm gonna slide this over right onto my cake. There we go. If you really, really wanted to minimize crumbs, then I would absolutely recommend that you freeze the layers. That would help tremendously. I don't have that kind of time today, so I'm just gonna wing it. I'm going to flip it the way I did the other one. And then I'm gonna flip it back using the pan. And then I'm just gonna slide this onto my hand and lay it on the cake. Now, this cake is pretty firm, so it does allow me to do that. Starting from the center, working my way to the outside edges. And this is where you have to get brave, because going down the side of the cake is where it can really get messy. So I'm going to start pushing my frosting over the edge of the cake, and I'm going to take my spatula and start working the frosting down the edge. This is the part I hate. It's also why German chocolate is one of my favorites, because German chocolate cake, you don't have to frost the sides. So just to make the edges a little cleaner, I have a glass of hot water, and I'm just gonna dip my spatula in it. This is a long, thin metal spatula. I'm gonna wipe the water off of it, and then you just take it and kind of spread around your edges. This particular plate has little dots along the edge, so it's kind of like running over the dividers on the highway. Now, if I were really being professional about this, you know, Martha Stewart, that kind of thing, they always do a crumb coat, which is where you do an initial layer of frosting and then you go back over it after it's been frozen or chilled. And I personally don't like frosting enough to do 2 layers. So I'm just gonna make this as pretty as I can with 1 coat and hope for the best. I think we're gonna call that done. It looks pretty good. It's not perfect, but it's not about how perfect it looks on the outside. It's about how good it tastes on the inside. At least that's what I'm gonna tell myself. If you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, please do. And make sure and stay till the end of the video for links to other content on our channel. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.